Hey Kerbal Space fans, this is Raw here with a video about space stations. So a subscriber asked me to help him with his space station creation. So I'm going to go into some of the ideas that I've had about him and how I make space stations. So you've all seen this one a few times. This is where I have been testing the SSTO that I built. The tanker's still there, of course, and it's still full. But this station, when I was making the quick build series, I found isn't nearly as comfortable to use as I thought it would be. As much as I tried to distance the Gigantor from the docking ports, it's still sort of a problem. And you might think, yeah, well, you have two aiming at it. Well, if I had this one aiming at it, it'd be even worse because it'd be right in the line of the solar panels. But even then, these four are encumbered by the solar panel. So I'm going to show you some of the other ideas that I had. The first was like a deployable station. I wanted to be able to deploy the docking ports out from it, but the idea turned out to be a bigger pain in the butt that I could have imagined. Here it is. This one, of course, is already ready to launch. So the idea here is I use symmetry to make these things attached to the docking port, and then as you see, they have their own computer control, and they have RCS fuel and RCS thrusters, which are not well balanced, by the way. That's part of the problem. And then, yeah, so I'd launch it into space, decouple these one at a time, float them around, and then dock them here. Number one, they're not that many. Most of my stations have 6 or 8 docking ports. This one would only have 4. They didn't stick out that far, and they were kind of in the middle of everything. So I decided not to implement this idea, and instead design something a lot simpler. And it's this one. So let me just show you the basics of it. Alright. So when you're building a space station, and specifically when I've seen other people on YouTube build space stations, they build rather intricate stations where like half of the station is ornamental. There's really not doing anything. It has dishes and antennas and just stuff that you're not going to use. I mean, if it's in career mode, you'd use one of those dishes. But you see somebody make a space station and it has, you know, 20 dishes or 5 dishes. Anyway, so here's the bare minimum station, in my opinion. It has to have these elements. Rocket fuel tank, so liquid fuel and oxidizer. RCS tank. Enough light so you can see it on the night side and pick a port and dock. It has to have RCS fuel and dedicated jet fuel, because most of the times when you're flying things at space stations, they're SSTOs, and sometimes they need just jet fuel, not entirely rocket fuel. So yeah, you could probably make this in a million different configurations. I like this one. I scrapped the Gigantors and just use these because I can't break these nearly as easily, and they don't get in the way. This is just one of those structural panels with solar panels on it. I also, before I finished this, tested to make sure a Kerbal could still get in and out of that, and he can. So once you have your station designed, and well, here's another thing that's just my personal opinion. I don't have RCS thrusters. I don't have engines. I don't have anything on the station, just to try to keep the part count low, try to keep it as simple as possible. When you've docked your 4th or 5th SSTO to this station, you end up with a lot of lag, because the station has a lot of parts, the planes have a lot of parts, and it just starts getting heavier and heavier. Now, my 7th docking port, which is here on the top, there's a reason for that. Let's say that I wanted to... let's say that I've already deployed this station around Kerbal in its parking orbit, you know, in its orbit, but I want to move it to Minmus and have it orbiting around Minmus. Well, this docking port is situated just so that I can dock like a space tug type thing. Like I said, there's something that's just like a bunch of control wheels, one of the gray tanks, one of the Rocket Max tanks, and 3-4 atomic rockets. And I can move this station to wherever I want. I could even transfer the fuel back from the station itself if I wanted to move it really far, and then just use a tank or some other type of thing to refuel it later. So that's why I have that one there. That one is there for if eventually I want to move it, deorbit it, do something like that. So let's go ahead and send it into space. Now all you would need to send something this big into space is a standard heavy lifter. I like this design. It has 2 of the really big tanks and 1 of the 4 stacks of engines, and it's 4 times asparagus staging, which I'm pretty sure everybody's already heard of or at least tried. And that's where the outer tanks feed into the inner tanks, this side tank feeds into that tank, and then back. The staging is set up so as soon as this is empty and these are full, this drops away, then that drops away, and then this stays in space. Now this is your standard lifter. I'm going to need a little bit more for the station. I'll show you what I'm going to add to it. I'm just going to reload because it was already ready to go. Okay, so the first thing I added to it was this stack of control wheels. The reason why is because this big booster is what is going to circularize and leave me in my permanent orbit. And then, since after decoupling it, this booster would stay pretty close by forever, just going around in a circle in its own orbit, and I don't like just going into the space center and deleting it, I just put these 2 on there. I mean, they're light. There's no big deal in doing this. I mean, it looks ugly, but it works. And what that'll do is it'll allow me to deorbit the booster after I've decoupled the station, their stage with the final decoupler. So let's put it into space. Full throttle, computer controls, lights on, go. Good thing is the aerodynamics of the game haven't made it so that it's impossible to launch something like that. It doesn't even move. Standard, you know, asparagus stage burning, you know, the outer tanks burning up fuel. Okay. So now that I'm thinking about asparagus staging, I was reading something that Elon Musk was talking about the Falcon Heavy project, that it has like 3 gigantic boosters and something about fuel crossfeed. Is that pretty much asparagus staging? Is somebody finally doing that like in real life? Because I don't think most space agencies really do that. If anybody would learn from Kerbal Space Program, it would be Elon Musk. Yeah, right. Like he learned from us. So, we're doing our gravity turn. Gently, of course. Now, since I'm already at an angle, I always put separatrons on these. I'm always afraid of running back into those. The first ones hardly ever get in my way because they're straight up and down. Okay. I like to stay pretty much on the prograde on my way up to minimize the steering loss, even though I'm pretty sure I'm going to have a ton of fuel left over in this thing when I'm jettisoning it. This amount of fuel is enough to get me into a 200 or even further parking orbit. For this video, I'm only going to go into 100 kilometers, so there'll be leftover fuel, I'm sure. Okay, so I'm going to do it at 100 kilometer parking orbit. The one that I always go to there is at about 150. It keeps changing because every time I hit it with a different SSTO, it seems to affect it little by little. It used to be perfectly circular at 150. Now I think it's like 152 on one side and 149 on the other. Oh, and interesting bit of information. That one doesn't have a centered big port that I can dock somebody on there and adjust its orbit. Okay. About 10 kilometers away, so I'm going to put it at 102 and let the drag do the rest. 101.5, that's fine. Okay. So, waiting for 70 kilometers. Cue the music. There it is. Okay. So now we can make a maneuver node and it's not going to move on us. I'm going to probably make it here because I want this to be as close to 100 kilometers as possible. There we go. 100 and something though. I don't want it to be. There it is, 100.5. This is where those control wheels come in handy. Okay. Yep, that's not working. Okay. Apoapsis is a bunch. 100, 103. Dang it. I really wish I did more of this post-commentary, but I don't have any editing software. Node in, boom, okay, there we go. That worked out. Okay. Let's see. 102. 97. Error. No. I'm at 100 now. Let's see if that works. Because I probably won't have enough time to make the node before I have to. No, I should be there. Due to the sluggishness of this thing, I'm going to totally cheat. So, put your gripes in the comments down below. Oh my goodness, I used time acceleration to stop the spinning. Hey. Okay. Let's see if that did it. 100, 100. Perfect, okay. So now what I want to do when I get rid of the booster is I want to point straight prograde. Actually a little further than straight prograde. I normally do this just pointing it at the horizon. Around Kerbal doesn't make any difference. It's going to come down anyway. But for example, when I've put stations around Minmus or the moon, that two boosters of that size could potentially put out an escape trajectory out the other way because they were almost always completely empty. What I found would work is if I pointed them at the horizon behind me, no matter what, they'd always crash. So I just got into the habit of doing it that way. So at the horizon, right there. Goodbye. Thank you. So I know for a fact that's gonna deorbit and crash. No, you can't see the trajectory here. Well, maybe if I switch to it, you can. See there, it doesn't even have a periapsis anymore. That's on the ground. No. Okay. So there we go. We have the station in orbit, and it's completely and totally full of fuel. So that's how I make space stations. Thank you guys very much for watching, and fly safe.